you saw the bees, they were only wiggling, right? They're only wiggling in a certain spot. So they go down the middle and they wiggle like this, and then they do a circle. And then they do a wiggle in the middle. And then they do a circle. And then they wiggle in the middle. And then they do a circle this way. Look, you guys, I already know where to go. That's the thing. Where we go? We're going this way. As you can see, let's see how I was talking to dance, right? So they're all wiggling just like that, like we were doing outside. You know, they're telling their sisters, hey, the food's over this way. The trees are over this way, and they'll do a wiggle, and then they'll do a little circle, and then they'll do a little wiggle, and then they'll do a little circle. So it is the coolest thing, and that's how they're communicating. They're telling everybody, like, we gotta go this way, we gotta go over here, you know. So they also have different jobs depending on, you know, how old they are when they first hatch out, right? So the first thing they do is that they clean the cells. They clean these the wax cells, and they polish it up for the next generation of bees, right? And then as they get older, their next job, one of the jobs is then they produce wax, and they only produce wax for a certain amount of time, right? Depending on how old they are. And then they'll move to just taking care of the baby bees, right? So they'll take care of all the larvae, they'll feed them, they'll take care of them, they'll cool them, right? So, and then the next stage is then they'll go out and forage for honey. So, so as they get older, the older the bee, so basically the different jobs that they have. So whenever you see bees that are outside, they're always a certain, I forget the days old, but you know how old they are in their life cycle. So they're towards the actually end of their life cycles when they're foraging. So they're old grumpy bees sometimes. That's why they sting you. So you know these nurse bees are pretty gentle. So they're like, don't bother us. We got to take care of the kids. We don't got time to mess around. So you know it's those grumpy older bees that are gonna say, stay away from our hive. Or you're gonna pay the price. Any other questions?
What do you have to do to care for this?
It's for this hive. Really, the big thing for maintenance is making sure they're fed for the winter time, making sure everything is functioning properly, because the winter time comes and then you can't really do anything. So, make sure they're fed, making sure that the root pattern looks pretty good, and stuff like that. There's other things, but that's the general.
Do you have to take those out at some point?
Yeah, so these come out, and same thing within the hive. They're called frames. These parts are called frames, and then that's when you see people like lifting the frames out. That's what they're looking at. They're looking at, how much honey does this hive have? How much pollen? How many bees are in there? So
and then you open it in here, and all the bees just.
No, we can close it off and bring it inside. So this is not the case. This is not normal. They eat nectar from flowers and pollen. So it's all about the plants.
If the bees were outside, would they have to have guardians in case other bees?
Yeah. Yes, they will. Yeah, that's a big thing in the fall time. Is that as resources get slimmer, right? The trees are losing their the leaves and stuff like that. Actually, other colonies, you're right. They will go and try to steal from this one, right? So they have guard bees, basically. Those are older bees. And they'll say, not today. So, alrighty.
My dad has maybe like 6 bees.
What do you think?
6 of them? Oh, well then you're an expert. You're an expert.
She lives on an apple farm.
Even better. You got all the visitors.
We've had. Where does the honey come from out of the bee? Does it come out its butt?
No, it does not come out. It has actually,
Weren't you
okay.
guys wondering
Does not come out its butt.
The bees eat nectar and pollen, then all of a sudden honey appears.
No,
Where does the honey
it's
come
even
from?
better than that. It's even better than that. They take it down, then puke it back up, and then dehydrate it. They will fan it. So
honey is bee puke.
yeah, honey is bee puke. Yes, but they have their separate. They have 2 stomachs actually. They have a honey stomach and then their stomach the bees to digest.
Oh, so it's
So it's just more
Not
of
quite huge, but
no, not quite big, but it's similar. Yeah.
It's more like a gas tank.
Gas tank.
They hold it in the tank and then they can either eat it or let it go.
either let it go.
So, yeah, I know. So we gotta be careful. She's kind of hard to see, but that's her right there. I wish I had a better. It's so hard to see. But that's her right there. And those other bees in there, are her attendants, right? So they're grooming her and cleaning her and feeding her. So. Yeah, I know. It's. Yeah, I wish it was. Can you see her in there? Where'd she go? She's down right there. Yeah, that's what these are for. So people who need they're either making more bees or they're splitting or it's called splitting, but or they have a problem with their queen, right? They buy one and put them in an already established hive. So
How much does a queen bee cost?
do you really want to know?
Yeah.
$40.
$40 for that tiny little bee.
Yeah.
All you business people, forget selling $5 boxes of cookies. Let's sell
I'm
some
telling you,
bees.
and there is a market. So maybe you guys can come back in a couple years and I'll show you how to graft some bees. All right.
Ooh.
And we can do like 20 at a time every 16 days. There's a market there. When they're first starting out, they look like this. Nothing, no wax. So when the bees are collecting that nectar and they're converting it into the wax, they coat all of this. And the reason why it has all these little cells is telling the bees this is the size of cell you need to make. So there's a plastic or wood plastic one. I also have it. This is also made out of beeswax, right? So this is how they used to do. They put it in a roller and make that indentation on the wax. This is actually a feeding jar. That's a good question. So sometimes, last summer it was so hot. Well, it was so hot that we actually had to supplement the bees' food so they could go into winter strong, right? So we feed them sugar water sometimes. It stimulates them to keep going, so they don't starve basically. So we don't want that. So especially last summer was crazy hot, and so they also don't like the hot because they want to keep this. They want to keep the inside of this 90 degrees. So even if it's 90 degrees outside, this hive is even hotter than that because of all the bees in it. So they got to cool that down, right? So they actually go to a water source and bring that back, right? And then basically spit it out, and then they evaporate it, and that's what cools down the hive.
What can we do to help bees?
That's a good question. So you can plant wildflowers, which is great perennials. Right? The nice thing about bees is they're generalists, so they'll do a lot of different flowers, right? So you don't have to plant specifically for them; they'll do a lot. So tomato and basil, the perfect combo. It's the best.
So I know that we go like bee hotels.
Bee hotels, yeah, those are really good for orchard bees, actually. So those are a specific type of pollinator, but actually their lifespan is not very long because they're only there for when the apples are out, right? So apples or pears or whatever for the orchards, right? Anything that blooms really early in the springtime, like crocuses or stuff that blooms late in the summer, because right now there's a lot out there for them. So if you really want to see them on the flowers, you plant stuff in like sunflowers are great, coneflowers, echinacea. Echinacea are great because they're perennials. You only got to do it once, and they come back every year. It's the greatest thing. So, what else? A lot of goldenrod. If you ever see in September, those yellow flowers. That's perfect. They love that. So.
Did you guys see all of the beekeeping equipment over here?
Right.
So
How
these
cool
are
is
the
that?
fancy suits they put on so that they don't get stung, and they have gloves.
Or yes, for protection. Yeah.
Can I squeeze through? I want to go check outside.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So once the bees make their wax and there's honey in there,
Yep.
what do you have to do to get the honey into those jars for people to purchase?
So we usually add a second. There's enough to get through the winter if you fill these 2 boxes full of honey. by the end of the fall time. And then we add other boxes, they're called mediums or supers basically, and they're smaller boxes because this thing full of honey, this box is like 75 pounds.
Wow.
It is heavy. In the fall time, I'm breaking my back lifting these things. So they're smaller boxes, so it's less weight. And basically what you do is that they'll build the wax out and then they'll cap it over when it's ready because they can know, right, how much moisture is in that honey, and then they'll cap it over, and we have a little knife or a fork, and we pull the caps off, and that's what those machines are in the back by the window. Those are centrifuges or extractors, right? You spin it around, and all the honey comes out.
You guys want to come look down in so that you could see where he puts the trays in there, and then it spins really fast, which makes the honey splatter out to the sides, and then it collects in the bottom.
Thank you.
Right there.
Thank you.
Wash and dry the can. First you have to punch a hole.
And then hammer it.
And then tighten.
Okay. Go now, go. Go now. Whoa, steady, steady.
Cut strips with paper bags a little less than the can. Roll your paper around the pencil to make your tube. Put a piece of tape on the paper.
Roll your paper on the pencil and then secure it with tape, and then look at you get these perfect little tubes.
Fill your piece of tube and hang it in the tree where I hang mine up now. These are ready.
Okay, ready. All right, so let's recap. We are on this garden journey, and you guys on your vest have your little garden journey thing we think someplace. Have your parents put it on yet? Everybody has their little garden journey. So what have we done to learn about the garden and helping our garden grow? We went to Adams, and can anybody tell me a little bit about what we did at Adams greenhouses? Does anybody remember anything about that day? Mel, what did we do?
Well, we went into the house to see the plants and then we talked about these. We talked about these and then we went into the greenhouse.
Right, because without bees, those plants wouldn't grow. So we wouldn't have strawberries and tomatoes and all of those fruits and vegetables that we love that have seeds in them. Cortland, what else did we do at the greenhouse?
So we saw where the bees go in and then get out, and we saw some honeybees.
Oh, that was today at our little, so we got to see a beehive today. So that was on day 3. We saw the beehive. At the greenhouse though, we got our hands dirty. Does anybody remember getting their hands dirty?
Yeah.
We got our hands dirty. What were we doing? Why did we get our hands dirty at the greenhouse at Adams?
I know.
Somebody besides these two. Earth to the rest of you. We got our hands dirty at Adam's greenhouse. Ev, what were we doing?
We were planting.
We planted marigold seeds and then we cared for them, which is how we earned the watering can. And I think we all learned a valuable lesson about how hard it is to take care of plants. Then on day 2, we were back at the school and we learned all about butterflies. And we brought in live caterpillars. And after we go on this little adventure here, we're going to go inside and see what happened to those caterpillars. Can anybody guess what happened besides Everly, who already knows kind of, and Portland? Great, what happened to the caterpillars? What do you think?
Mommy, we heard from when I saw the video in the Christmas.
Ooh, surprise attack. So they're chrysalises, and some of Everly/Miss Aubrey's chrysalises hatched and they are real butterflies that we're going to see. Okay, so we spent time talking about bees and butterflies. And now we're going to talk a little bit about underneath the ground. Can somebody name something that's underneath the ground that helps gardens grow? Bailey. Rocks. They don't help gardens grow, but they're definitely underneath the ground. Something living. I wasn't very specific. Something living in the ground that helps gardens grow. Maddie.
Worms.
Worms. And my sister's boyfriend has a worm farm.
Excuse me.
And we're going to go see it right now. So here's how this works. Eric had a lot of food scraps. Who has food scraps at their house? Anybody have scraps of things like the core to an apple, a banana peel, maybe some like fruits and vegetables that, you know, you're like done with. It's like, ooh, that strawberries. And what do you do with it? You throw it in the garbage. But when you throw it in the garbage, animals don't get to eat it. It doesn't go back in the ground. It turns into this like bacteria, sludge, nastiness, right? So it's really not great to throw it in the garbage. The ideal thing to do would be to compost it. Who's heard the word compost? And compost takes a lot of work. Your grandpa has one. They're a lot of work. They're tilling the soil. They're doing the whole thing. This worm bin is very easy. So here's what Eric does. We're going to lift this lid off, and we're going to show you. Oh, it's on a hinge. I wasn't ready for the hinge. So everybody on that side, sorry, but here it comes. So here's what's happening in here. This side is soil that Eric's going to use in the garden, because when worms eat these scraps, they turn it into soil. So worm poop is kind of like soil. And on this side, this is where the worms are like building stuff, and this is where he puts the scraps. So basically worms eat paper, food scraps. They love coffee grounds, tea bags. Anybody has a cup of tea in the morning, you just throw the tea bag right in there. What they don't like, so they like soil that's moist, but not really, really wet. Like you can't throw worms in a pond. All right, once you have a worm in your hand though, you want to step back so in case anybody else who wants to hold a worm can hold a worm. And then, so they don't have eyes, their bodies are made of segments. They eat dirt and rocks and they'll break down soil. Big earthworms are great. Oh, it's the tiniest little worm we've ever seen, Claire. It's a little baby worm. So they eat dirt and rocks, and they break up big chunks of soil. So anybody that has a healthy garden will have worms in there. Whoa, we gotta put it back in. Who's gonna? Oh, Adrina's gotta put it back in. Be very gentle with our worm friends. His family. So if anybody wants to take a couple worms home, Eric said you could take a couple worms home and start your own worm bucket at home. And then there's holes in the bottom of this bucket because worms make a lot of wetness, so that wetness will go into the bottom. What's up, Emil?
Well, you shouldn't put it in your pocket because it's just not going to be in there.
It's too dry and you might squish it. Yeah, so we would have to do it safely. Safely in a cup would be our goal. So it's not good to like dig up your soil too much in the garden because worms just want it to be left alone. Earthworms dig really deep, big tunnels, which helps the water absorb into the ground.
Can I take one?
No, I think we're gonna give you guys like another minute of worm time, and then if anybody wants to ask their parents about taking some worms home, we could possibly arrange that at the end of the journey. All right, so let's say 30 seconds. We're bringing all these worms home with us, and then we might start our own worm farm at home. So if I might eat them. All right, life preserver has to be around Herman's neck because he learned a valuable life lesson. You wear the life preserver. So you have to get the life preserver around Herman's neck, all the way around. It needs to be in the middle of Herman's little body, right around his waist. Communicate. There's no stabbing Herman. If you touching Herman with your fingers is against the rules. You cannot use your fingers. You gotta really pinch him in there. Chinese chopsticks chow. I don't hear you guys communicating. You guys should really be talking about it. If you talk, we might be able to get more success.
How about I hold this?
There we go.